Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, August 29th, 2014. Well, it's official. Russia has now invaded Ukraine. And now you know why, week after week, the last 2-3 weeks, I've been leading with the Ukraine story. Because that I knew that this story was leading us towards war. And of course, now we have full metal-on-metal contact with the Russian military inside Ukraine, helping out the pro-Russian separatists against the Kiev government army. But hey, my sources say, and I have some sources that are saying we've been helping, the U.S. has been helping with boots on the ground, the Kiev, the Ukrainian army. That's why. How do you think we had all these wins? The Ukrainians had all these wins against the Russian-backed pro-Russian separatists. It's because the U.S. has been helping Ukraine. Of course, we can't disclose that. Because if we disclose that, we're charging that the Russians are helping the pro-Russian separatists, and we're now saying, oh, well, Russia invaded Ukraine and releasing satellite photos. We can't exactly come out and say, yeah, we've got, hundreds, if not thousands of our own boots on the ground there helping the Ukrainian military, because after all, this is a bankrupt country. Ukraine is bankrupt. They can't pay for their energy. Their government is in disarray. And here they're making these big strides against the pro-Russian, Russian-backed separatists. And now, Vladimir Putin says, hey, enough's enough, and boom. He blows into eastern Ukraine and overtly invades to help the pro-Russian separatists. Now, there's all kinds of talk. You have Angela Merkel, the head of Germany, saying that, the United States can't solve every problem. And there's talk of them petitioning Ukraine. Now, I don't know if that's going to be an easy go because Ukraine has reinstated the draft, and this is going to be what appears to be a long slog. And then we have the Trump card. Remember, Russia has all that natural gas, and it goes through Ukraine, and every European country needs some degree of this Russian natural gas. And are they going to cut off their gas if the sanctions get bad enough? I mean, President Obama in a news conference this week was quick to point out, well, there won't be any military solution in Ukraine. And my sources say that's not exactly true. We're already helping them militarily. And then he says that that the president is saying that the European Union and NATO, and we're going to ask our European friends to escalate these sanctions. I mean, the European economy is already in shambles, and this is going to make things way worse. And then there, with the fear of them cutting off the natural gas, I mean, that Russia's going to cut them off, or maybe they don't cut them off. Maybe they double or triple the prices, say, hey, it's going to be a cold winter. I mean, this is a convoluted mess, and I wonder if that's the design. I wonder if that's what they want. I mean, here we have Stanley Fischer, the vice chairman, the number 2 at the Federal Reserve, officially laying out a scenario for a plan for bank bail-ins. Haven't we been told over and over again that the economy is in recovery and things are going great, and look at all these positive GDP numbers? And why would Fischer be laying out an official plan to protect systemically important banks? Why would he be doing that? And why would we be pushing this in eastern Ukraine and Ukraine, with this ratcheting up of sanctions and war and all the rest of it going on in eastern Ukraine? Oh, were they going to blame this war on the Russians? Here they have, look at this. This is another little tidbit here. 5 U.S. banks hit by hackers, and they're Russian hackers, they're state-sponsored hackers. This is in USA Today. And I'm thinking, well, that for sure tells me the financial war is in full bloom. And are they going to blame any kind of an implosion or a bank holiday on, the Russian hackers, basically hacked into our accounts, and the president comes on one Sunday night and says, well, we're going to have a bank holiday, and those pesky Russians have, basically imploded our system, or this war that we have has imploded our system. And Stanley Fischer is laying out this official plan for bank bail-ins, and why this hasn't made, the USA Today, and why this hasn't made CNBC, and why this hasn't made even Fox. Why aren't they talking about this plan? Why would he make a plan for bank bail-ins? Are they Are they going to use war as cover because the system is so indebted, so out of whack, so crazy, hundreds of trillions of dollars in interest rate swaps and derivatives and all this stuff that there's no way that they can fix it without just imploding it? Is that what they're going to do? And then blame it on somebody else, like the Russians? I don't know. I have no idea. For one thing's for sure, wider war in Ukraine is coming. And it is going to be particularly ugly for the Ukrainians and for the Europeans, who are going to desperately need cheap Russian natural gas this coming winter. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, everybody's talking about ISIL or ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant. Now they're just calling it the Islamic State. And, they have taken over large swaths of, eastern Syria and western Iraq, and now they're threatening the Golan Heights, the part of the Golan Heights in Syria not controlled by Israel. And this is ratcheting up, and the president says he doesn't have a strategy. Yet. Of course, the White House puts out a statement. The top White House PR people that he really does have a strategy. Listen, the president comes out this week and says they don't have a strategy to deal with the Islamic State yet. And last week, the Secretary of Defense, Hagel, and the head of the Joint Chiefs, Dempsey, they come out and give this news conference, and they talk about having, that the problem with the Islamic State is an imminent threat, and it could threaten the whole world in the United States. And Hagel even came out and said, we haven't seen anything like this. And that they're well-funded and well-organized. And then they have all this U.S. equipment that they got in western Iraq. And I know this is freaking out the Israelis, who I said weeks ago when this thing with Hamas started, that, if they end up going in and the volleys kept going back and forth, that, the Israelis would try to knock out Hamas. And after weeks and weeks of fighting, what happens is that here we go, front page of USA Today, Israel-Hamas reached ceasefire. Israel and Iran reached ceasefire. And I read this article and think, what did the Israelis get? I mean, the Israelis opened their borders. That's what Hamas wanted. Okay. The Israelis extended the fishing from 3 miles to 6 miles in the eastern Mediterranean. Okay. What did the Israelis get? The Israelis asked Hamas to disarm. No way. They're not doing that. So why? Why the ceasefire now? And they opened their borders up for humanitarian aid and construction. Why the ceasefire? And I'm thinking, well, let's see here. They see a wider war coming, the Israelis. The Obama administration cut off a shipment of offensive weapons, Stinger or Sidewinder missiles. And they're probably going to call up the Obama administration and say, see, we have a ceasefire, and we've came to the peace table, and we've given up a lot, and we didn't make Hamas disarm. But I think the Israelis see Hamas as being a much less of a threat now, and the Israelis have bigger fish to fry with the Islamic State on their eastern border and north and east, and them threatening the Golan Heights, which is a strategic location to Israel. It's the high ground, and the Israelis are not going to give that up. So I think they're going to, the reason why they have this ceasefire, which thank goodness they do. I mean, thank goodness the shelling and the fighting and the rocket attacks and the airstrikes back and forth stops. The Palestinians, a lot of death, a lot of casualties, a lot of wounded, more than 2,000 killed. You can't minimize that. But I think the Israelis cut this ceasefire deal, even though they were demanding Hamas disarm, because they have bigger threats coming on their doorstep, and which tells me, even if the president doesn't have a strategy, listen, they do. The Israelis do. And this is going to be a much wider war. You can't have the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Secretary of Defense the week before talking about how it's a huge threat to America, a huge threat globally, and then not have a strategy. And then you hear people like Karl Rove on Fox say, well, we need to knock out this Islamic State, but then we still need, but that'll help Assad. See, Islamic State, Sunni, Assad, Shia, and, this will help Assad. He says, well, you can't have it, you can have it both ways. You can knock out the Islamic State, ISIL, and then you can still fund the moderate, Syrian rebels, the Free Syrian Army. What? I remember I was telling you years ago that we were funding, the Syrian rebels, and in part they were Al Qaeda. Well, I was right. We were funding and we were arming them. And what happened? Shazam! We had ISIS pop up, an offshoot of Al Qaeda, and now we're back to arming the moderate rebels. You mean Al Qaeda? Now Al Qaeda looks moderate compared to ISIS. What a messed up policy in the Middle East, and it is not heading towards peace. All sides, none of them are heading towards peace. And it's funny, the president was, Assad is going to be leaving. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And now he's backed off on that. Now he's not talking about that because now, Assad and us, Assad looks pretty tame compared to ISIS, beheading people and crucifying people. And so chaos. I mean, that's what we have. We have one convoluted mess of a foreign policy in the Middle East. And let's not forget that we're sending a carrier group to Asia, to Japan, and China, and one of its fighter aircraft, an Su-27, doing barrel rolls over one of our Poseidon spy aircraft, supposedly in international waters. And boy, if you were China, wouldn't the United States look pretty weak right now with all these furloughs of the military and the way Obama is talking about how, well, we're not going to have a military conflict. We're not going to have a military conflict anywhere. We are going to do some bombing in Iraq and Syria. Of course, he hasn't made a decision on that because he doesn't have a strategy yet. And so we're sending another carrier group, and that's just like an aircraft carrier. There's several ships go with a carrier group. So we have 2 carrier groups in that part of the world. And why? Why do we have another carrier? China is going to be our enemy now. Our biggest, creditor is going to be our enemy. Are they going to default on the bonds? Is that going to be an excuse for them to do that? And, well, we don't owe you any money now. We're at war. I don't know. And please keep in mind that the biggest oil company in the world, Gazprom in Russia, has made it official that they're going to be doing trade with ruble and yuan. No more petrodollar, no more dollar in trade between China and Russia. That they have made it official. And this is the further continuation, the erosion of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency and the petrodollar. Now, that wouldn't have anything to do with all this global tension with Russia and China and the Middle East, where Russia and China, that wouldn't have anything to do with any of that, would it? Thank you very much for supporting USA Watchdog. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your donations. That helps us. That's the way I see it. Have a nice weekend, and fear not.